Okay, so this is just going to be a quick build video. I know that when I was waiting for my frame, I really enjoyed watching build videos. So this is just going to be a quick, not necessarily a how-to, as UAV Futures and SFPV already have some great videos out. I would recommend checking those out if you're going to build this frame. So now that you've pimped your quad, let's electrify your quad. Let's do this!
Okay, so first you're going to need a power distribution board. This is the one that I purchased with the frame. This is a 5-volt step down. It's from Banggood. And I'm going to mount it somewhere around here. NACE32, D4R-ii. This is a Foxeer TM200. I'm going to test it out, see how it is. I'm just going to solder a pigtail onto it. HS1177, of course. And it's nice how it plugs right in there. That came with the TM200. And of course, LittleBees. These are some ZMX 2633 kV motors that I'm going to test out. It should make it a flying machine. Some propellers, and of course the antenna, and then some miscellaneous frame hardware. Here's some tools that I use. These are not all of the tools I used, but this is a decent amount of them. This will definitely get you started. For the love of God, wear safety glasses. So we're just going to solder that XT60 connector on there. This is a wire I'm going to use for the 5-volt step down because the power distribution board is set up for a Palulu or Palalu, however you say that, and this one's from Banggood, so I had to rig it up and it ended up pretty nice. I have no complaints. Mounting it to the frame. Here I am taking the heat shrink off of the motors. I'm going to end up soldering the windings directly to the ESCs. So I'm just going to take all the little motor wires off. I'm going to put some heat shrink on them because they're a little too bare for my liking. Even though the frame is painted, I still didn't want to risk it. Just wetting the leads a little bit to get some of that old solder off. And for me, since I use BL Heli and I'm able to reverse the direction through the NACE32, I have no need to cross wire motor wires or anything, so I just do them all the same. I use a little piece of electrical tape to put my thread locker. Just give it a little dip. If there's too much, just dab it on the side. Alright, so now we're going to hook up power to our ESCs. You're going to want to leave some sort of service loop if you do it the way I did it, or if you wrap them around. Any way you do it, you're going to want to leave a service loop of some kind. Which basically means you just want to leave a little excess wire, just in case an arm does break. It won't rip a pad or anything. There'll be some slack there for it to bend with it. Bam, we got our juices flowing. So I'm jumping the pins for the D4R-ii so it'll output ppm. I tried flowing just straight solder over it and it wasn't working, so I just grabbed a piece of wire and soldered that on there. It's just a bare piece of wire. I'm just going to cut off the heat shrink for the button, just so it doesn't depress at all. Here I am marking the ESC leads with a marker, 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you don't have the connector on the end, this is an easy way to do it. Look at that. Fancy. Just tinning up the nays. So we're going to go ahead and solder up the leads. 1 first, 2 second, 3 third, 4 number 4th. Take your time, there's no need to rush with anything. You want to make it look good. Alright, there we go. All 4 soldered up. And I'm just gonna flip it over. Little flipperoonie. Little flipperoo. Little flipperoni. Alright, that's enough of that. Tinning up some more pads. This is gonna be the NAS 32 straight power from the battery. So it's going to go to the bat pins on the NAS. I'm just going to ohm it out a little bit, make sure my solders were all good, and it looked fine. Wiring up the buzzer. Gotta have the buzzer. It would have been nice if Armattan had made a little spot on the power distribution board straight for the buzzer, because it'd be much easier to mount. But I did come up with a solution. It worked out pretty good. I'm just using the double-sided foam tape to basically tape it down, then I put another piece on over it to give it a little, make it a little more secure. I ended up putting a piece below it as well onto the frame, then the other part onto the alarm itself. And it seems pretty strong. I found to get rid of the sticky, all you gotta do is just take a marker and start coloring over it, and it's no longer sticky. So these are going to the buzz pins. Of course, you want to do positive to positive, negative to negative. So now it's time to get our receiver ready. Just making the leads all the same lengths, and now I'm stripping them. Just a little bit of strippy. Then I'm going to tin them all. It's much easier to solder if you tin everything first. And the little green wire from our telemetry, 4-hour telemetry, which is coming from the D4R-ii, you're going to want to put that on pin 6. But I'm completely lying. That's what you want to do if you don't want to use your LEDs. If you don't want to use addressable LEDs, then do as this video shows. If not, you're going to want to put that green wire onto the positive telemetry port on the naze. If not, it's there's gonna be communication problems between the LED and your telemetry. Alright, let's hook up a battery and see if our little 5 volter is actually giving us 5 volts. Lo and behold, it is. Cheap little thing from Banggood is working really well. Now that we know that it works, we can actually power up our naze and our receiver. Just going to add a wire from the 5 volt pad on the PDB to the 5 volt pad on our naze, which is going to be the pins in the middle of our ESCs. There's no need for a ground wire with that 5 volts. All you need is the plus. Time to stick the receiver onto it. I love this double-sided foam tape. Buy some. It's great. We use it all the time. Okay, here we have the addressable LED. The VDD pad is going to be going to your 5 volts. These are not 12 volt LEDs, these are 5 volts. Your ground is going to be going to your ground, of course. And then there's a pad called DI. That's going to go to your pin 5 on your naze. As I was saying before, if you're going to use these LEDs, do not put your telemetry on pin 6 as Painless360 does in his YouTube videos. You're going to want to put it on the telemetry port on the naze. You won't be able to receive telemetry while it's unarmed, but you'll still be able to receive telemetry when it's armed. And you'll be able to use your LEDs. Your cool LEDs. How could you not use those? These are a positive and negative for our TM200. And we don't need the audio signal, so I'm just going to take that wire out. Here I am soldering up the pigtail for the TM200. There's a shield around the side that's going to be our ground, and then there's a wire in the middle that's going to go to the center pad on our TM200 transmitter. So you want to keep the shield intact so you can actually solder it up to the board. You want to get as much as you can to make a strong connection. Take your time, there's no need to rush anything. You don't need to do this all in one day. This looks like it's going to fit nicely. So I'm just going to go ahead and wet these connections here. And I'm just going to solder it on up. The shield's going to go to the outside, and our middle one's going to go right in the middle, just like so. You can do it on the other side as well. You can put the shield on that other pad. They're connected. There's no problem with that. And there's no hole in this LED, so I ended up having to resolder a shorter pigtail onto the VTX because there's no hole in this LED, so beware of that. Here I am powering it up. I'm just gonna wire it up straight to battery power. It works on 3S, 4S, no big deal. I like to do this with these little wires. It makes them a little bit stronger and a lot cleaner. Just twist them on up. Twist them on up. Okay, so you just go ahead and plug that in, and then we'll mount it all. And now it's time to mount the camera. I would definitely mount the camera to those standoffs before you install everything, because it's a lot easier to do it that way than the way I did it. Okay, we'll install the antenna. And now it's time to install some props. Do this after you do all of your clean flight stuff, of course. Make sure everything's going the right way. And let's look at some pics.
Okay, so some quick things I want to mention. Your LEDs, they're going to go to pin 5 on your naze, and your telemetry is going to go to the dedicated pins, telemetry pins on your NACE32. You only need the green wire. It's worked out fine for me. But if you end up doing it the way Painless360 does in his videos, where he puts it on 6 and has an enable soft serial, you will only be able to get the telemetry and your LED won't work. And to get the telemetry to work, you want to enable UART1 with the free sky telemetry option. And you don't want soft serial, there's no need for it, because we're on the dedicated pins. You won't be able to receive telemetry when you're unarmed, but at least you'll be able to receive it, and you get to use your badass LEDs. Why would you not want to use these? They're sweet. The camera, you're going to want to probably mount it to these little brackets before you install everything. It's much easier to get the screws in. There's no hole in the LED plate, so be careful of that. You can't mount anything through it. It sits flush with the frame. And be sure to plug in your transmitter and your camera before you install everything. I had to take this top plate off like 3 times before I actually finished with everything. And the LED plate itself, the pins are kind of confusing. There's a VDD, which is your 5 volts. This is not a 12 volt LED panel. Do not put 12 volts on it. You're going to want the 5 volts. You could probably take it from your flight controller if you wanted to, or you could take it from the pad on the distribution board like I did. And there's a ground pin that's going to go to your ground, and then there's a DI pin, and that's the one that you want to go to pin 5. I already flew this thing once, and it screams on 4S. It echoes through buildings. It's awesome. I love it. It's so much fun. Definitely recommend this frame and these motors. The VTX worked out pretty good. I have no complaints, and oh, I love this camera. Just invest in this good camera. It's nice. You won't look back. Okay, thanks for watching. Make yours badass.
Oh shit!